Welcome to Anatomy of the Card, a tutorial for beginners. We're going to be looking at the 7 different types of cards in Magic the Gathering that inevitably you're going to encounter while playing. Additionally, we're going to go over the different parts of each card type, the content on the cards, and what does and does not matter during gameplay. This tutorial is geared for the beginner, for people that are new to Magic, just getting in to the game, don't have extensive knowledge in the game, and are looking to better understand the cards themselves and how they work. This brings me to a point that all new Magic players really ought to know. Magic the Gathering has changed a lot through the years, and you may find that some versions of a single card, vary not only in art, but in overall design. So be prepared for that as you go along. Additionally, you'll find that the further back you go, Magic has changed some words, or in some cases, completely discontinued words along the way. And as we go through the 7 cards, I'll try to make sure I give some examples. Finally, due to the ever-changing nature of the game and how vast it already is, this is not going to be an exhaustive list of all the cards and card subtypes that Magic the Gathering has. Instead, we're only going to focus on the 7 card types that every Magic the Gathering player needs to know. Those 7 card types are lands, artifacts, creatures, instances, sorceries, enchantments, and planeswalkers. Without further scrying, let's dive into Anatomy of the Cards. All right, so welcome back to Anatomy of the Card, and we're just going to dive right in here. So first thing you're going to see is that I have an image up here, and you'll see little boxes on the left columns and little boxes on the right columns, and then you'll see little squares or frames, if you will, that are highlighting in the same color as the boxes in the columns. These boxes here go along with this over here, and this one goes with this one over here, and etc. So the first thing you're going to see here in this blue box is card name. All cards' names are in the top left-hand corner of the card. That's the very first thing you're going to recognize. This says Swamp. This is a land card, and the name is Swamp. Next thing you'll have here in the white box, set symbol. Okay, this little sideways black diamond with a circle in the middle is your set symbol. As we go through the different cards, you'll notice that this symbol will change from one thing to another, and it will often be something different. It will also change in color. When it changes in color, you'll know that it is a different rarity. So this one here being black means that it is a common, okay? There are commons, uncommons, rares, and mythic rares. The colors will change from black, which is common, to silver, which is uncommon, to gold, which is rare, and to red, which is mythic rare. Mythic rare being the rarest, and common, of course, being the most common. Over here in the red box, you'll have card type and subtype. It will always go in that order. The first part is your card type. This is a basic land, and then you'll have a break, and then the second part is your subtype, which of course this one is Swamp. And the next thing you have here in this purple box down at the bottom is 486, and then below that is MH2, we're focusing on the 486 part for collector number. Okay, so in the purple box, the 486 means that this is the 486th card of whatever set or variation this is, and that is your collector number. So let's say that you were trying to get every single swamp collected. You would know if you had this one at 486 that you've already collected that specific swamp. Up here in the next column, you have in the light blue a square indicating that this is the art of the card, which should be pretty obvious, but just in case, that is the art of the card. And then the next box down below that you have, which is green, which covers this skull shape here. That is your mana symbol. You'll recognize this as we go along on other cards. It will be part of the cost of the other cards that we're using this mana to pay for. In fact, think of land cards as producing mana, and think of mana as the currency of the game. That is how I learned. It's always been useful for me to think of, I am paying with black or I am paying with red. That is exactly how it goes. Down here in the bottom corner, you have the yellow, and that is the artist name. So the artist that made this picture here, their name will always be at the bottom of the card here. I shouldn't say always, because as we go along, you'll see how much they can vary. And then last but not least, in the pink, we have the copyright information for Wizards of the Coast, which of course is the owner of Magic the Gathering. So that is your basic land card right there. And something to note is that subtypes can change quite a lot as we go along. You'll recognize that subtypes will change. And while this is not an exhaustive list, I will say that there are subtypes that cross borders. So now that you're more familiar with lands, we will move on to the next card. Let's get right into the artifact. So up here in the corner, you again have the card name. This is a Sol Ring, one of the most iconic Magic the Gathering cards ever printed. In fact, it's been printed from the very first set all the way through to now. So over here you have set symbol, which is of course in white. Over here, and you'll notice that it is in silver. It is a silver set symbol, so that would be an uncommon. Over here in the red box, you have artifact, which is the card type, and you'll notice that this one does not have a subtype. Some cards do, some cards do not. If this artifact was also an equipment, it would say artifact equipment. If this artifact was also a creature, it would say artifact dash creature. So the subtype does not always apply. Purple, we have the collector number. And so over here, this one has 3 numbers and then a slash and then 3 more numbers. The reason that is different is because this is the 261st card out of 318. Some sets have a more comprehensive collector number like that, or some cards do and some do not. Up here in the light blue, you have the mana value, or CMC. That was, of course, not on the land because lands do not have a mana value or CMC. They produce mana, which you would use to spend on these other cards. So, for instance, this one here is a colorless. It costs 1 colorless, or translated to 1 of any color in most circumstances. So if I have only white mana, I can tap 1 plains to create 1 white mana and pay for this Sol Ring. Also, here's one of those changes that I talked about in the intro, where we have mana value slash CMC. The reason I've written it that way is a lot of older players will refer to this as CMC, which is converted mana cost. But recently, Wizards of the Coast changed the wording to mana value. And that really, I think, mostly came down to the fact that they wanted to shorten up the overall text that it takes in some of these other boxes down here. And I think mana value is a much shorter way of saying instead of converted mana cost, which is 3 much longer words. And I think it was a great change. So over here in the green, we have the activated ability. Something to note is that this is an activated ability, which means that you have to specifically do something. You are either spending mana or tapping this artifact or sacrificing it, etc. So you have to do something that has a cost involved in order to make this part of the ability happen. So in this card, you'll have the tap symbol right here, and then it says add 2 colorless to your mana pool. So you pay 1 to bring this artifact into play, and then you can immediately tap it and create 2 colorless to your mana pool, which, you know, is pretty powerful. And but we won't get too much into the strategy during this video. What you need to know is that this is the activated ability for this card. Over here in the pink, we have flavor text, okay? It is always going to be in italics if it is flavor text. Flavor text does not apply to playability of the card. Neither does set symbol. That does not apply to the playability of the card. Neither does collector number. That does not apply to the playability of the card. The only things that really apply to the playability of the card are the card name, the mana value, the card type and subtype, and the activated ability box. Down here in the last section, we have in yellow, this is the artist's name, the artist that made this beautiful picture right here. Moves us on to the next card type. All right, so we are on to the third card type that you will need to know about, which is creature cards. This specific card I chose, Nactal Warpride, card name is right here in the blue. I chose this card intentionally because, as you can see, it is structurally, the architecture of the card is quite a bit different. You know, here you have mana value in light blue is over here on the far left side, underneath the card name of Nactal Warpride. And it is also vertical instead of horizontal. I chose this one intentionally so that you could really see the variance of the cards. However, most creature cards that you see in Magic the Gathering are going to have a very similar format to what you saw with the artifact card that we just went over a few minutes ago, where the mana value is going to be here up in the right hand corner, not here on the left hand side, and it is going to go horizontal, not vertical, as you can see here. So, however, I did this because I really wanted you guys to see the difference and get some variance in there. So over here in the white, we have the set symbol. This is Future Sight, and it is in silver, so this would be an uncommon card. Right here in card type in the red, and then subtype, we have creature, cat, warrior. So this is a creature card. It is a cat and it is a warrior. Some subtypes will have multiple types. So if you were playing a deck that really cared about cats, you would have a cat right here with this creature. If you had a deck that cared about warriors, you know, then you would have warriors here. And if you had a deck that cared about both cats and warriors, this would apply to both. So the subtype really does matter when it comes to playability of the card. The next thing you have here in purple is the copyright. I don't know if we've been over that yet, but I thought that it might be important to know that it'll say copyright down here at 1993 to 2007, Wizards of the Coast. So 1993 being the first year that Magic the Gathering cards were printed, and 2007 means that this is the year that Future Sight was printed, or this specific card was printed at least. So then up here in the right hand, right below mana value, we have static ability. Okay, so this is not the same as what we had in our artifact, which was an activated ability. This one here is a static ability, which means that it just is, okay? So Nactal Warpride must be blocked by exactly one creature if able. So the static ability of Nactal Warpride is that when he attacks, if there is an available creature, only one, exactly one, is able to and forced to block Nactal Warpride. This is actually a very powerful card, but once again, we're not going to get into strategy during this video. Next, you have in the pink triggered ability. Okay, not the same as activated ability and not the same as static ability. A triggered ability is a reaction to something else having already happened, okay? So it triggers as soon as whatever the other thing is happens. So for example, this one says, whenever Nactal Warpride attacks, put X tokens into play, tapped and attacking, that are copies of Nactal Warpride, where X is the number of creatures defending player controls. Remove the tokens from the game at the end of turn. That's a bit wordy, but essentially what this means is that whenever he attacks, you are automatically going to get multiple copies of this creature, and the number of the copies changes based on how many creatures the defending player controls at that time. Those creatures come in the form of tokens, and tokens are a card that represents something specific. So in this case, it would represent a copy of this creature card. Okay, so it would have all the same, it would have the same name, it would have the same subtype, and it would still be a creature, etc. Okay. After triggered ability, we have down here in the yellow, power and toughness. You will only see power and toughness on cards that are creatures or can become creatures. Okay. The first number is your power. That means how much damage this creature does. And the second number is your toughness, how much damage this creature can take without dying or being destroyed. So it would be power, first number, and then toughness, second number. All right, well, that pretty much wraps up the creature card. So we're going to move right on to the next one. Okay, so we are on to the next card type. This card type is instant. You'll see it here in the middle in red, card type, instant, no subtype on this specific card. But let's go back up to the top. Card name, lightning bolt, set symbol over here in white. And you'll notice that the set symbol is silver, which of course means uncommon. The card type is instant. Okay, so what is an instant? An instant is a card that you can play at any time, essentially. You can play this during your turn. You can play this during combat. You can play this in response to other spells or abilities happening. You can play this during your opponent's turn. There are a few exceptions, but for the most part, instant cards can be played at any time. Let's move on to the next part. We have collector number down here in the purple. Once again, this would be the 54th card out of 106 in this set. Up here, we have mana value, a single red. And then in green, we have the ability of the card itself. So Lightning Bolt deals 3 damage to target creature or player. Now, this being older version of this card, this has actually been updated to Lightning Bolt deals 3 damage to any target. And the reason why that's been changed is because there's now a card type called Planeswalker, which definitely did not exist when Lightning Bolt first came out. And then the updated wording did not come into play until much later in the game. Over here in pink, we have flavor text. The Spark Mage shrieked, calling on the rage of the storms of his youth. To his surprise, the sky responded with a fierce energy he'd never thought to see again. I mean, flavor text is fun, guys. Read the flavor text on your cards. Get into the mood, get into the game, get into the environment, check out the art, become familiar with your cards. You'll enjoy the game, to such a higher level when you do. I know some players that are only really into the game because of the art or, love the lore behind the flavor text often has hidden little gems that happen throughout the history of Magic, Magic the Gathering. So over here in yellow, you have the artist, which is looks like Christopher Moeller. And although it's not indicated in this specific picture that I made, this over here, of course, would be the copyright. So that pretty much does it for instances, and we'll just move right on to the next one. All right, so the next card that we are going to go through is the card type Sorcery. Once again, card name at the top, Traumatize. Set symbol over here in gold, M14, so that would mean that this is a rare card. Over here we have card type, Sorcery. Collector number down here, 77 out of 249. Artist in yellow, Greg Staples. Flavor text, he was left with just enough memory to understand what he had lost. The ability of the card, target player puts the top half of his or her library rounded down into his or her graveyard. Ouch. Let's just cut your library right in half. Not too fun to play against sometimes. And then you have mana value up here, 2 blue and 3 colorless, or 3 of any color. Something to note about card type, Sorcery. So Sorcery is a lot like Instances. You play it, and then as it resolves, it will go into your graveyard, indicating that you have used it. But sorceries can only be played during your first main phase and your second main phase. They cannot be played during combat. They cannot be played during your opponent's turn. They cannot be played in response to somebody playing something. That pretty much brings us to the next card, and we'll just move on. Okay, so the next card out of the 7 cards that you need to know as a new player is the card type Enchantment. So we'll just break it right down. All right, so card name, Pacifism. Mana value is 1 colorless and 1 white. The set symbol over here in black means it's a common. Let's see here. We've got card type Enchantment and subtype Aura. Okay, so here's something that we could talk about for a second. Enchantment, Aura. Okay, so Aura did not always exist. That's one of those subtypes that came in later on in the game. Enchantments are permanent, so you would pay the mana, the enchantment comes into play, and it stays in play. The fact that this one is a subtype aura means it has to be attached to something specific, and then usually in the box below it will tell you what it has to be attached to or enchanted to. And we'll go right here to the green box, enchant creature. So this one, of course, enchants a creature. And then it forces that creature to not be able to attack or block. Enchanted creature can't attack or block. So that's what the ability of this card does. And the enchant creature is specifically what you're enchanting, which means that you would not be able to enchant a land with this card because you have to enchant a creature. So unless that land is also a creature, you would not be able to use pacifism on that land. So then we're going to go down here to the purple, and this is the first time I touched on this. Set abbreviation. These 3 letters down here, JMP, stand for Jumpstart, which is a set. And I'm not sure when they started doing set abbreviations exactly. And then over here in the yellow, we have the copyright, of course. And in pink, we have flavor text. Yeah, so that is enchantments. And we've got, I believe, 1 more card in the set, so we will move on to that. All right, so we are on the last card out of the 7 card types that you need to know. So let's talk about the anatomy of this card type and subtype. So we have a legendary planeswalker. So we have the card name up here, Teferi Time Raveler. Set symbols down here. This is gold, so this of course would be a rare. Up here we have mana value, 1 colorless, 1 white, 1 blue, which means that you would need 1 of any color, 1 white, and 1 blue. So this would be a multicolored card. It is considered both white and blue. So if you had a deck that cared about white costed cards or blue costed cards, this would count for both of those colors. You have over here the card type and subtype. So we have a legendary, planeswalker, dash Teferi. Okay, so let's talk about what the word legendary means in Magic the Gathering. An important part as far as playability is concerned. So legendary, you cannot have 2 legendary permanents in play at the same time that share the exact same name. Okay, so we can have a Teferi, XYZ, but you cannot have 2 Teferi Time Ravelers. So if we have this Teferi out, we cannot have another copy of him out, so as long as it is a legendary. And it is a planeswalker, which is the card type, and then you have the subtype, Teferi. All of the different Teferi planeswalkers will have the subtype Teferi. Over here in purple, you have the ability cost right here. So this would be -3 loyalty counters to make this ability happen. Over here, you have your starting loyalty. So this Teferi Time Raveler comes into play with 4 starting loyalty counters on it. And this is a permanent, so it would stay in play. And in order to use its ability, you would have to either go up or down to make the ability happen. You will have the activated ability in pink. So let's say for this one's ability cost is +1 loyalty counter, and the activated ability would be until your next turn, you may cast sorcery spells as though they had flash. So flash is an ability able to be played as though it were an instant. So think about how powerful it would be to be able to play a sorcery at instant speed. And then the green is your static ability. So once again, the green means that this just happens. It's just as long as this permanent is in play, this ability is happening. So each opponent can cast spells only anytime they could cast a sorcery. So not only is Teferi Time Raveler going to allow you to play your sorceries at instant speed. He's also going to stop your opponents from playing instances. They're going to be forced to be played at sorcery speed. So it's a complete reversal. Very, very powerful card right here. And one thing to note about Planeswalkers is that when your opponent is declaring their attackers, they can choose your Planeswalker as their target that they are attacking. So let's say that my opponent is attacking me with a 4/4 flying dragon, and I don't have any blockers, and they say, I'm going to attack Teferi Time Raveler. Well, guess what? Teferi Time Raveler is going to have to die and go to the graveyard because I don't have any way of protecting him, and he only has 4 loyalty counters on him. The next thing that you need to know about Planeswalkers is that they can also be the target of spells and abilities. So if your opponent has, for instance, a spell that deals 3 damage to a Planeswalker, such as Lightning Bolt, which we went over earlier on with the instances, and you've already used that second ability here that takes 3 loyalty counters away from Teferi Time Raveler, he's going to die. He's only got 1 loyalty left. They're going to send a Lightning Bolt to Teferi, and he's going to die. So it's kind of like having a partner. They can be very effective allies on your team. All right, well, that pretty much wraps it up for the last card type.